Okay, I'm Scott Shane again. If you've been watching my videos, I've been promising a video called Apostles' Row, in which I retrace the path of Jesus from the Bible, where he went to find to look for apostles. And I will compare it to the Apostles' Key in modern day astrology and show you how it looks a little bit similar, how we could do the same thing. And I've been talking about another video in which we're going to talk about some of the other miracles of Jesus that we didn't really get into yet, and they have to do with some of the discoveries of my trainer, by my trainer, Ed Steinbrecher, and some of his discoveries have been published. The most famous one is a book called The Inner Guide Meditation, but many of the other discoveries he made are getting lost and disappearing, and one of them was he explains something he calls alien patterns, because the native has a few qualities that he grows up with. His supernatural power is so strong that he learns to shut them down early, whereas a lot of psychics, they may grow up and they know these gifts are there, and maybe they know to keep quiet about them. The alien grows up feeling alien because he or she has been stuffing these, because he or she speaks about them so often, and people start playing whack-a-mole, and so they feel really out of place when they tend to be some of the strongest gifted people on the planet. And this chart has an alien line up in it. The Neptune is conjunct in both the moon and the rising, and so that makes what he calls an alien instrument connection between Neptune and Scorpio rising, the cusp, and it makes an alien vessel connection between Neptune and the moon. Now that we already talked about the Neptune is already a vessel. It's a container. It absorbs too easily. Empaths often absorb other people's feelings, their illnesses, and some of them turn that into a gift. And others, many of them will say, learn to shut that off and this and that. And these people are supposed to do the opposite. They're to learn how to let this son of the sun power energy, this quantum physics rather. This is a lot of quantum physics energy. We have our archetype of God energy, we have heaven energy. All this will come into and absorb into Neptune. Now, all these 4 or 5 outer planets, they have these supernatural gifts to bring to people. And this one, Neptune, is so huge that as the sun, like the sun, exploding its energy, just the sun's up there in the sky exploding, and here it is high in the sky, 1 o'clock, it's exploding its energy into this native when he's born. Neptune, infused in this body as well, is being infused by all that energy, changing physically the native, changing the body physically, and into the moon, changing his nervous system, his electrical system, and we don't really know all the ways they're being changed, but we do know that Neptune is then exploding its energy back out into the world that he sees as Taurus, loving everyone. But in this case, God is the great healer entering another great healer, Neptune. And there will be spontaneous healings. We'll follow this person. You remember in the Bible, Jesus, people would follow him, want to touch him, because the word was getting around. And these could be big, miraculous healings. They could be small. But what's happening is this consciousness is coming through here. God consciousness is floating out into the crowd that he's in, and lifting their consciousness too, lifting their thoughts higher, lifting their awareness higher, lifting their supernatural abilities higher, lifting their senses, their own intuitions. Everything is being lifted, and this is where some of the healings are going to come from right away, because in that electricity that's happening, and this quantum physics energy can start to heal anything in the bodies of those people around this guy. You never know when it's going to happen or how strong it's going to be. Some of the lighter ones will be things like, if you're hanging around him, if you didn't dream, they start dreaming. If they didn't dream in color, they start dreaming in color. And this is very quickly, within short amount of times, hanging around this person. It could be things like, if they're not intuitive, they suddenly have a prophetic dream or something like that, have their own experience with a vision, and just by hanging around this guy. And there can be bigger miracles that will become known and can be talked about in the Christian community. In the metaphysical community, some of this stuff tends to fall flat and lost, because there's a lot of things happening there too. But the larger miracles can be anything from addiction, arthritis, anything that is especially connected with the nerve, the electrical system. If something's not getting enough energy, what do we see in the Bible? Eyesight. Tons of nerves in your eyes, in the retina. What else did we hear? Deaf. The deaf, a miracle of the mute who started speaking, paralyzed people started walking. These are all born from the electrical system. They use the electrical system. And so you can see things like that. You can might see people from addictions. Suddenly they don't need their drug anymore, especially false addictions, like where doctors over-medicate you. That's what I call it, addictions. And what other types of miracles? There's the light coming down. This is all light, color, the spectrum of magnetism, everything that energy has to do with the polarities. What else is energy? There's so many different things going into this native. And I forgot what I was going to say. Damn it. Let's pause. Okay, here we go. I forgot what I was talking about. I had to start over. So I was talking about the light that is coming down from God, from our archetype of God, from heaven. And there's something in the Bible about Apostle Paul. And I'm calling this Apostle Keys, right? Everybody isn't Jesus. This is Apostle Key. Apostle Paul had an experience that really makes me think that Jesus was on the right track, going on the path he took to find his disciples for a reason, for potentially some information that the three kings gave his parents, Mary and Joseph. They would have talked to Mary and Joseph for quite a while, maybe even stayed a few days, and they would have passed that information on to Jesus, right? And Jesus took a path in Apostles' Row that I call Apostles' Row that matches what I'm going to show you. And I think he found someone who might have had some of this alignment in his chart, and that's Apostle Paul in the Bible, where it talks about the light fell down around Apostle Paul, circled him, and that it was as if scales fell from his face. Okay? That can happen here. That's in this key. All this energy and all this connection, physically, physiologically, aurically, your electric system, and any of the apostles, anybody that has it, that can have this. I kind of want to share a story with you. This happened with someone, and in my lifetime. I know someone it happened to, and it happened in public that people didn't even recognize him. It was as if scales fell from his face. Remember, I said people that Neptune went into Scorpio 50s, 60s, 70s, and so some of these people have this lineup. I know someone that this happened to, and people that saw him 20, 30 minutes, an hour prior didn't recognize him. They didn't know who he was until he started opening his mouth and coming up and talking. And that's what happened to Paul. So I think we're going to go into this Apostles' Row a little bit and talk about that. And it's going to give more credence to this discovery that I'm talking about, more credence to the three kings and the Magi, the astrology work behind why they would be doing this in the first place. And I need to think of another miracle. I can't right now, but I'll pick them up as I go along. So why don't we just go straight into one of these videos, the Apostles' Row, and the best way I know to do that is to put it on a computer. It's you won't have my beautiful stage set up here. You'll have a beautiful computer set up. So, all right, let's go there now. So, we're on the beautiful little screen. Now, one thing, if you're watching this video and you haven't seen the other ones, you need to watch the Apostles' Key main videos, and it would be useful for this one to also see the demonstration. The app key videos are going to talk about Son of the Sun in astrology, the ancient requirements for any person born to be named Sun King, Sun God, all these kinds of various names. And in the demonstration, I claim to have woken up the Sphinx. Ta-da-da! And so the Sphinx is now exposed for what its true purpose was. The Sphinx was there long before the pyramids, and it was used sort of as a very elaborate, I'm putting forth anyway, as a very elaborate sky watcher. The Hopi Indians, American Indians, have been watching the skies for thousands of years in their own way, and this is sort of an example of one of those, and you can research that if you want. They were not shamans necessarily, they were the priests. They were mystical, but they were a little bit different, and they were watching for their sun god, their son of the sun, things like that, and they predicted that he would be born here. In the 90s, there was everybody was watching in California, because Edgar Cayce said he was going to, be found in California. He was going to, there was person after person, people are wondering, is this him? Is this him? Is this Jesus? I think they're looking for the same person. I think that, and we'll talk about some of that here in a minute. So when we woke up the Sphinx was designed to watch the skies for incoming planets. And what they would have been looking for is if there was planets over the horizon, the shaman, the Magi, all the people would know to go, to the Magi. The Magi would be running around. Who just had a baby? Who's pregnant? Who's about to give birth? That kind of stuff. Because now go back to the Apostles' Key and you'll see what they were looking for. And they would have seen this in broad daylight or before broad daylight. Some of them would have been staying up all night to see what was coming in daylight. But here's a picture quickly of how it works. The picture on the left is more accurate in that the Sphinx is parallel, perpendicular, right angle to the Great Pyramid. And I think that they brought the pyramid along later to work in tandem with the Sphinx,
the Sphinx would have been still looking out over the horizon on the eastern sun, the eastern sunrise, and but the pyramid of Giza, the Great Pyramid, the one that's close, points straight up into the sky where the sun would be. Now, our picture of the three kings always shows the sun in the sky, high in the sky, but showing that it's not nighttime. It's um, watch the Apostles' Key video. It's 12 noon to 1. It's very bright outside, and so they might have seen the moon shortly after. They might have again stayed up at night, but this is how they work. This was the whole reason that the Sphinx was built, and this is why they found so many of their gods, their so-called gods in their religion. And I got another video about all these other so-called gods coming up too. And let me see what else. So that is what the Sphinx was for, Giza, what else? And I think it was just a more elaborate version of what the American Indians were doing. And they were both looking for the same kind of people, son of the sun. So now that we've woken up the Sphinx, what else can we say? So get caught up on those videos, and that should finish us for now. And so once the three kings, and I think one of them must have been an Egyptian king, came to find Jesus, the story goes is they just show him at the manger with some gifts. But you can imagine if a king's going to waste all his time to send his astrology people, the magi, to go see them, or go themselves. But anyway, you can imagine they wouldn't just bring some presents and leave. They probably spent considerable time with Joseph and Mary, telling them all sorts of things that they learned from Egypt, and signs to look for if he might be gifted or whatever. And we know that Herod was very upset in My Apostles' Keys. I kind of explain why. If you haven't figured that out, I could explain that. But he would have spent considerable time, and the Bible says that Herod got upset and wanted to kill all the 2-year-olds, was it? Or just Jesus, or all the two? Anyway, Joseph and Mary fled to Egypt. And why not? That's where the Magi came from. They were if all these people came and said, your son might be gifted, he might be the one, come see us, if he showed whatever. So, and if Herod's all of a sudden wants to kill all these kids to try to kill Jesus, of course, I'm explaining, that's why they would have fled to Egypt. These were the people that helped in the first place. And the other guy's trying to kill our baby. So here we go. And they go to Egypt, and they spent, scholars talk about how many years. But that when Herod died, or I forget, I don't know if he was killed. We need a pastor to help clean this up. They went back to Egypt, back to Israel, to I think Nazareth, and they would have continued telling the stories to young Jesus as he's growing up, and anything new that they learned while they were in Egypt, where all the great God finders are. And he would have had those gifts, and he was safe. So let me see. I think I'm probably done with that. Let's move on. So yes. So now this leads us to the Apostles' Row. Here's our two pictures. Here we go. Here's Bethlehem, where he was born, and the three kings and the Magi would have come there. And you can imagine that some of the stories, now that's what we're going to talk about a little bit, some of the stories they might have talked about, oh, we came from here, and we're going there, and we're looking for the one, and your kid might be the one, or he is the one. Anyway, you can imagine that I imagine that they might have said, well, they're going this way, towards the Sea of Galilee. This is the Sea of Galilee. Doesn't say it. This is the Dead Sea down here where they're closer to. And the reason I kind of put two and two together for now is because near the Sea of Nazareth is where I think he met Apostle Paul. That's where the first place he went to look for apostles. Is he took that path up here towards the water, and I can imagine maybe that's what the three kings said they were going or coming from. And why would he go to that little bitty puddle? You know, there's not very many people there. And so here's my curiosity going. If I was Jesus and all I wanted was disciples, you know, Haifa, Hassa, Gaza, Tel Aviv, you know, all these. This is a modern map. It's got modern city names, but I mean, gazillions of people would have been living up along the coastline. Why would he waste time going to um, the Sea of Galilee, where you know, there's a couple of farmers and you know, not much fishing going on compared to the ocean here? So now here's how we get to some of our modern thinking with this Apostles' Key. Every time, I'm telling you, every time I put stuff together, it's not like Henry Ford, who, you know, or rocket science, where, you know, you have to have 1,000 wrongs to get it right. When I'm doing this, I'm using the Bible, I'm using every kind of thing, history of Christianity, history of our traditions, every kind of thing, and everything keeps falling in place over and over and over. And this is just another example, so now watch. Pay attention to these lines. Let's say one of these, this line right here might be the one that Jesus might have taken to go to the Sea of Galilee. And again, why? Maybe because maybe the three kings said that's where we came from, or that's where we're going. And again, they could be the Magi. That was their job, really. So remember these lines, because we're going to go now to a modern day images of astrocartography. Okay. And first, if you get your astrology done, you get this astrocartography. And all these lines are planets and suns and moons as they're crossing the Earth when you were born. Okay. And here's my little, I'm bumping it right in here. It looks like Pluto, but it's really, it's Neptune. And it goes up this way. And it turns, and then this other red line, this straight red line here, is the sun. And so now if we zoom in and we look at that, look at the shape of this. This is Neptune. Okay, and Neptune is ascending. That's what this AS trying to say, it's ascending. And then here's the sun. Now remember, look at that. Look at that. Now, would the three kings or the Magi have been going that way to keep looking for kids? And look, we get the same shape right here, following the Neptune. I don't know why they chose to follow the Neptune yet, because I haven't used the software yet to plug each day and time and blah blah blah, but you can do that. It takes a while. If any astrologers want to help, please do. So now, since Jesus went to the Sea of Galilee and met Paul, I've talked about the miracles, and I've talked about that Paul might have some of this in his chart. Are you connecting the dots? I'm trying to connect the dots for you. Sometimes I skip around too much. I'm sorry. But now let's go back to our map. I have deduced, or I'm guessing, whatever, that if somebody born in this area, see, there's our little triangle, may have some of this apostle key in their chart. If you were born July, August, 50s or 60s, when Neptune was going through Scorpio. So check your chart. If you know somebody was born at lunchtime, July, August, anywhere near in this area, in this triangle area, you might have some of this Apostle Key stuff. And if you haven't discovered it, if you're running from it or wanting to know more, send these people this my way. I've got a website. I've got a phone number. I guess I'm gonna be putting the email pretty soon too. And I have gifts for you, just like the Three Kings did. I don't know if they're the same, but I do have gifts for you. And also look at this. Now we're talking about the American Indians. They've always been saying their son of the sun is born here, and I think they're talking about the same person. But how many people are we going to find? Our Indians right here in America were onto something, and I think it's time maybe they can be proud of something too, because I'm pulling it all together for them, and I'm proud of them, and I'm proud of Egypt, and I'm proud of everybody that tries to do this. So let me see. Where can we go from there? Oh, the last thing, Apostle Paul's miracle. It said on the road somewhere, the light fell down around him. And okay, so Jesus went up to that Sea of Galilee and he found Apostle Paul, and somewhere when he was still Saul, I believe, he was Saul that became Paul, and Saul fell down and the light fell down around him. And I told a story about someone I know that this happened to. But the person I know that it happened to, the scales fell immediately. And I think, okay, here's something else I'm putting forward. Just from my experience with miracles and people who have had them, God doesn't do anything bad. Now in the Bible, it says God made him blind or he went blind. I'm going to put forth a different theory. Anybody who's had your first miracle, maybe you levitated, maybe you did telekinesis, maybe you had your first out-of-body experience. Most of us know that if you have a big emotional reaction like, oh my God, it can kill it. It can stop it in its tracks and your miracle's gone. And I think it comes from Hollywood. There's a lot of that, scary stories where miracles happen and they're always scared. They're always, terrified. And well, that's a scary movie. But Apostle Paul apparently went blind. And I can, I feel empathically, I feel how it might have happened. Sometimes we push or pull through different parts of our body. For example, if you're wanting to manipulate, if you don't want to fight or argue too much, but you use your voice, maybe you're pushing out through your stomach, your solar plexus chakra just blew out. Okay? And sometimes in the same way we might do it with our throat when we get upset. So something else can happen with the eyes. Sometimes when we're startled, afraid, surprised in that way, we can suck through our eyes. We can suck the energy, in disbelief, sort of, and amazement and shock. And I can imagine where he might have channeled that energy someplace wrong, someplace bad, and it could have caused him to go blind. Now in the Bible, the story says a few days later he went to see a healer, and this shows the moment where something like scales fell from his eyes. Actually happened a few days later when he went blind in a house in Damascus, when a disciple named Ananias laid hands on him to pray for his healing. And I think this good healer helped realign that energy or whatever blocks he created with his reaction to the light, and the light finished doing what it was supposed to do. I don't think God intentionally blinds anyone. We don't have a mean God. I don't think we should fear God. I think we should love God and be grateful and praise Him and join up with them. So this is another something I'm putting forth, um, because I have a loving God, and I don't know if it's to believe or not believe, but that's my story, my new interpretation of that story in the Bible. So I guess we can probably end there, and we'll say thank you to our Indians and for their close watch. And I guess we'll sign out. All right, thank you for watching.